Hi, everybody. My name is Sean Smallwood. Y'all know me. This is our second class together now. And today, for my subject matter expert interview, I'm going to be talking to Beth Keller Halls. Beth is also a pastry chef. I met her when I was working at Biltmore. She was the pastry chef at a very well known local chocolate place, French Broad Chocolate. They make their own chocolates and they have an ice cream shop and they have pastries and they do a little bit of everything. And some of the folks at Biltmore, we got to go take a tour and do a chocolate tasting, and that's where I met Beth. She had just started working at French Broad. Our personalities hit it off, so we exchanged numbers, and we've just kind of been friends ever since. So, Beth, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, Sean.
Of
It's really
course.
fun to be a part of your school journey. So I'm really happy to chat with you tonight. I kind of grew up, I was always a baker. My family is all really into food. My mom has four sisters, and every one of them like bakes from scratch and cooks from scratch and stuff. So it's kind of like in my blood.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I went to pastry school in my hometown of Chicago at the French Pastry School. At that time, it was kind of a small school taught by two Frenchmen and one American who had studied in London for a long time. And I think because of the pandemic, they weren't able to continue in person school, but they still have like cookbooks and textbooks and stuff. And so from there, I started working at a restaurant in Chicago called Hot Chocolate under kind of a well known pastry chef there. She's a James Beard Award winner. She has her own cookbook, and now she has a really great bakery called Mindy's Bakery. So she was my first boss and mentor. I moved to California, where I worked as a pastry cook for a Michelin starred restaurant. It was a very small team. It was the first year that California was getting Michelin stars, so it was like a really big deal. And there were only four or five cooks, and we made everything from scratch. I came in at 1 in the afternoon, and I had until 5 to make homemade ice creams, everything for service. We had a tasting menu. We were fully booked. We were booked for like months out. So that was kind of an instrumental job for me. And from there, I heard about this guy who was kind of changing the taco truck game, Roy Choi. And because I had spent some time in China, I sent him an email and said, "Hey, I think we'd be a good fit. Do you need a pastry chef?" And I made him, I was making at the time as part of my side hustle. This was my first side hustle out of my teeny tiny apartment in Alhambra, California, which is like a suburb of LA. I was making homemade beer ice cream with salted chocolate chip cookies. And so I made these ice cream sandwiches. So I brought them to Roy, and he was kind of doing pop ups at a bar. He put them on the bar menu, and like I made as many as I could, and they sold out in like 20 minutes. It was like crazy. It was just like they were just always selling out. So from there, he and another chef, Brooke Williamson, who went on to become famous from Top Chef, they kind of hired me together to be their pastry chef. So I did that for a long time. Then I kind of went on to some other jobs, and I started making biscuits. So the rest, as they say, is history. And here I am in the South now, making biscuits and scones at the farmer's market. So
Well, you're definitely in the right place to be for biscuits and scones.
true.
So,
Yes, very true.
Southerners, I'm not a native Southerner, but I feel like I've been here long enough to say I'm Southern.
Yeah, for sure.
Bigger is better and more butter is also better. I'm all about Paula Deen, like butter baby. I'm like, let's do
Yeah,
it. But
exactly.
now that's so cool about Roy Choi. I think I've seen him on TV. I think I've seen him about the whole taco truck thing in
Yeah.
LA. I'm pretty sure because when you said that, I was like, I know who that is.
Yeah, he has a show where he, ironically, he works a lot in Chinatown, which is kind of where I got my start in LA. And he interviews my friends and ex-boyfriends and stuff
Oh,
in
okay.
Chinatown. Um, yeah, just different people who are doing like food ventures and stuff, which is really fun. Like Chinatown became this hub of new chefs, kind of up and coming talent, just kind of doing whatever we felt like cooking. And so, yeah, he it's on PBS. I forget the name of his show, but yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah,
So I know you worked at French Broad and then, the pandemic hit and everybody in the service industry hated their life in one form or another, whether or not they were still working or not, because if you were still working, more than likely your crew had been cut, so you were doing double duty, or you ended up losing your position altogether. And I think there's still a pretty large gap in the industry because so many of us have chosen not to go back and work or have ventured out on our own like you have been doing it because you've been doing good gravy bakes for over 2 years now, haven't you, in Asheville?
I haven't actually. I haven't like completely launched my rebrand, but it's changing to Field Trip Bakery pretty soon.
Okay.
So yeah, I have been. I kind of started while I was working at French Broad Chocolates. That was really crazy because I had 2 days off when I was working at French Broad Chocolates. And one day I would spend all day prepping, and the next day I would do the bake off and then go to the farmer's market. So for like a year, I didn't have a day off. Like I was just hustling. And it was a really good cushion for me to kind of see if it was, if my products would be well received and just kind of get a feel for like, kind of going out on my own here and stuff. So
Right, to
yeah.
see if it's gonna be
Yeah.
viable enough for the long term.
Yeah, totally.
I understand. It's scary. It's scary when you're going out on your own and you don't have, like, that guaranteed paycheck, but
Yes.
there's also so many more positive upsides, I think, to it. Just getting to kind of set your own schedule, focus on what makes you happy rather than what makes somebody else happy, um,
Right.
and,
Yeah.
um and just having a greater peace of mind, I think, and not having to deal with the stress that comes along with working in a, organization that has a corporate structure.
Yeah, it's very true. I think being an entrepreneur really boils down to what level of risk are you comfortable with? Because some people aren't comfortable with any risk, and other people are really, really comfortable. It's like they're like lazy boy comfortable with risk. So
That's great.
so I think it really depends on that. And I personally love being able to control my interactions with people. I think that also is a huge part of like a baker or a restaurateur entrepreneur. I was never a chef who wanted to just like hide in the corner and never talk to people.
Right.
Some people are like that. They just want to put their head down and do their production and go home. I was never that type of chef. And so very early on, I was given managerial duties and responsibilities and made a manager for those reasons. So I think that also is a little bit of a difference because you have to like sell your product,
For
no
sure.
matter how beautiful it is, you still have to answer questions and engage.
Exactly. You gotta put
So
a smile on your face, and you gotta talk to customers, and sometimes it's pleasant and sometimes it's not pleasant, but
yeah,
that's the nature of the game. So
totally. Yeah, absolutely.
So from a PR perspective, how did you advertise when you were in California? Now, was it just more or less word of mouth because you had sold out so quickly and it generated so much hype that people were just talking about your chocolate chip beer ice cream sandwiches that sound delicious, by the way?
Thanks. Yeah, I did when I worked with Roy kinda handled the PR. That was a mistake that I made, actually. I don't looking back, I don't think I would recommend that, like, I kind of allowed him to take center stage. And so I think there was the expectation that as, excuse me, as his star rose, my star would rise too.
Mm,
Um, but, that doesn't really happen a lot because you know, uh, I think when you do what we do, I mean, you have to kind of, there's enough for you to do to generate your own PR, let alone to carry a whole team with you, right?
mhm.
So it wasn't until later when I truly kind of went out on my own that I was able to kind of generate more of that. And I was just lucky because I was just in places where people were looking for something new, people were looking for something different. There are so many food writers and bloggers in Los Angeles. People just do that full time, right and left, that anytime there's a new food festival or a new food something or a new pop up, they'll come and review it and check it out. And if you have good product, then you're naturally just going to kind of make your name that way. So,
I kind of it's interesting that you say that. It's kind of almost like influencing before influencers became a thing.
yeah,
You have your food bloggers, this is like I'm not sure if Instagram was around back then or not, um,
just
but I
starting. Yeah.
remember blogs were very, very popular in, like, the early 2000s. That was, like
Yes.
that's where you went. You had, like, Facebook, you know,
Yeah.
MySpace, which was a fading thing, and then
Yeah.
blogs. So
Yeah.
you have the bloggers come to you, they already have an audience, they're writing about your product, and in a sense, it's free advertising through word of mouth, but then they have that reach. So that's smart. I mean, I know folks still do that. If you can find a local uh influencer or like a foodie and have them come to your establishment or try your products and they give you a review, that can significantly boost um business and sales. So that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um
Yeah.
and it's also interesting, it's funny that you said about allowing Roy to handle your PR and thinking it's kind of like, okay, like if when I worked at Biltmore, I was a lead pastry cook, but if I did something, of course, my supervisor is gonna get all the credit for it.
Yes. Yeah.
At the end of the
Yeah.
day, you're still working for them, so everything is credited to them.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that the kids these days have, right? Is that they know that it has to be more individualistic. And, when I was kind of growing up, that seemed kind of like selfish, right? Like I was taught that, first of all, we're taught that we honor our bosses, which is good, right? We want to
Yes,
be good employees. But then in the kitchen, it's kind of double duty because then you don't have the ability to say no. Like in pastry school, I remember they specifically told us never say no to your chef.
right,
And looking back now, that is not healthy. I don't, I'm no longer like willing to be like, oh, I'm okay to like miss my nephew's graduation because I have a wedding cake.
right.
Those are things that I would definitely say no to now, that I think employees do say no to. And it's hard when you're the boss and someone says no to that, but also understanding that it's not fair. Just because we do what we do, it doesn't mean that you can be run into the ground.
There has to be a work-life balance.
Absolutely.
That was
Yeah.
one thing at Biltmore that I did not like. I always had a start time on the schedule, but there was never an end time.
Yeah.
The end time was when whatever is going on that day is done. That's when you're done.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
now I have time. After I get done eating my meal over a trash can, I have
Yes.
I have time to go home, drag a rag, go to bed, and hopefully I have a clean uniform in the morning. So
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Yeah.
now that you are out on your own in Asheville, I know that you do tailgate markets and farmers markets, but I also know that you have wholesale clients.
Uh-huh.
So how were you able to, pick up those wholesale clients? Did you do any advertising, or was it just you going around to different establishments? Because I know that you feature your products in other restaurants and coffee shops as well, and networking with those folks and getting those wholesale accounts that way. How did you manage that?
While I was still working at French Broad Chocolates, I thought, okay, I'm gonna, go after wholesale. So I put together so many pastry boxes for all the coffee shops that were around. I probably dropped off, I don't remember how many, um, full of beautiful pastry boxes, kind of highlighting what I do. And then I also followed up with everybody because that's really important. And you know what? Not a single person took me up on that wholesale. And I was really discouraged. And I kind of thought, oh, okay, what's going on, But then so that was, I can't remember if I was doing the farmer's market then, but um then circumstances just kind of happened and made it possible, excuse me, for me to leave French Broad Chocolates. And once people found out that I had left French Broad Chocolates, then they started inquiring about wholesale. So I don't know if it was because it was a conflict of interest, because some people do buy their chocolate and stuff. So I'm not sure. I never asked. I mean, it's not really, any of my business why. Um, but then I found out that there was kind of a market for wholesale and what people wanted. And so it just kind of became word of mouth, actually, how I picked up the wholesale. So I just kind of had one or two accounts. And then they kind of got to know me and, making sure I was reliable and seeing if the products would sell. And then it just kind of grew from there, to be honest. So I would say Asheville's a very small town, and so word of mouth really travels. I think that I'm still learning, but I really honestly believe that still the best way to sell anything is word of mouth, because other people will sell your product better even than you can sell it, you know?
Oh, yeah, I was getting my hair cut at my really fancy barber shop, Great Clips, and, I love the lady that works there. She's so sweet, and we always, I've been going there since I lived in this house since 2018, so we know each other pretty well. And she's like, "Oh, how are you doing?" And baking always comes up and whatnot. And then she ordered some macarons from me, and then right after I delivered her macarons, her coworker turned around and ordered some royal icing sugar cookies from me, and it was literally just like you said, just from talking to people and, showing your work. Like, I have my little Instagram page, so I'll pull up pictures and show them pictures of my work and whatnot. And I know that you also do, use social media as part of your PR as well, like, you'll announce where you're going to be at, you announce your menu
Mhm.
items, what the times are, or if there's any cancellations or updates if you can't make it for that particular week. I see that all the time, it pops up on my Facebook. I'm like, "Oh, this
Oh,
is what Beth is doing." But it's smart
yeah.
though, because you're keeping your customers informed. They can follow you, they know what's going on, but it also leaves a little bit of anticipation and mystery, because it's like, what is Beth gonna have at the farmer's market this week? It's not necessarily set, and so you're offering a variety of products to your guests or to your client. I just say guests, it's habit. To your
Yeah, yeah.
clients, like to
Yeah.
your guests.
Yeah. Yeah. Y
Very
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, social media, I think, really was a game changer because it really is free marketing. And, sometimes people will say to me, like, what's your marketing plan? And I'm like, what do you mean? It's social media. It's just social media. you know,
It's
like,
social media, you're right, and it's interesting, the class that I'm in now, I've never really thought about marketing or PR in the sense of from a professional standpoint of, like, hiring a professional.
Uh-huh.
There's a wonderful person in my cohort. Her name is Coral, and she owns a PR firm in downtown Asheville. And
Nice.
so since we're both in this program together, it's an online program. We've been able to meet up a few times, and she allowed me to tour her business and sit down with some of her employees and interview them and talk about the whole process. And I really I feel like it is super, super helpful, but I feel like we have, we have levels that we have to maintain, especially when you're an entrepreneur and you're working for yourself. It's like you have your clients, you know what you can produce, and if you blow up beyond that, it's like you won't be able to keep up with production needs anymore, or you have
Yeah.
to hire people or find a new facility or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So I feel
Yeah.
like there might be a lot more that goes into that before you consider hiring a professional PR firm,
Yeah. I think it's true, and I think it depends on a lot of like what your goals are. Because
right?
I think that if your goal is to, get a James Beard Award nomination, or, be featured in, you know, some well-known publications and stuff, I think, those are like the kind of angles that a PR firm can really open for you. So I think it also kind of, depends on that. I think Asheville is definitely a city where any kind of exposure, I think, will translate to dollars,
Mhm.
because people will read something and be like, oh, next time we go to Asheville, I'm going to go pick up whatever it is because I read about it or I saw it. So I think it's very strategic for Asheville when you get to a certain level to bring a professional on. But again, I think it just depends on what your goals are. So,
Right. I mean, we have a small population. I think it's just at like 93 or 94,000, but we get over 1,000,000 tourists in the city every year. It's a tourist city year round, you know?
yeah, for sure.
And, I think that's also great because when tourists are here, they do visit local markets and see what's going on because Asheville is a known beer and foodie city. People come here,
Yeah,
they wanna see the trees, they wanna see Biltmore, they wanna, go on the Blue Ridge Parkway or go hiking or whatever the case may be, but when I go on vacation, I just wanna eat. I'm like,
yeah,
but, I know what you mean though too about putting together samples, and that's kind of, as we've discussed, I told you about the skincare line that I'm developing, as I
yeah.
as I
Good
have given
stuff.
you a sample.
It's good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah.
I think that's key right there. You have to go in and make batches of your products, which of course costs money, but th
Yes.
that that is a PR strategy in itself by
Yeah.
distributing your products. Because if you distribute your products to the right people and they want them, like if you have somebody who has a store or whatever the case may be, and they want them in their store, there's a wholesale opportunity right there.
Yeah. Totally.
And I think a
Totally.
lot of people discount wholesaling because they're like, they think they can't demand a price that's high enough to make a profit, but it's like, it depends on your volume as well. So,
Yeah, it really does. Yeah.
there is money to
Yeah.
be made in wholesaling.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Well, I appreciate your time, Beth. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for taking time out of your busy, busy day. I know how busy it is. This is like the 4th time we have rescheduled this interview, but it's fine.
We made it.
It's
We made
fine.
it.
It that
Yeah.
that is the life of an entrepreneur and just the overall person these days, I think.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Do you have any closing thoughts or words to an entrepreneur who is looking to do something similar, kind of like a one person show? Like, what is the best bit of advice that you could give?
I think the best bit of advice is trust your instincts. I don't have kids, but it seems like the very popular advice to mothers is like, it's your, like, you birthed this human. Like, you know, this human, you're like with this human all the time. Like, you're the mother kind of thing, and the father too. Doesn't need to be a gender thing there. But I feel it's that way with a business because sometimes everyone's going to have an opinion. And I made a decision kind of early on when I was doing this that I was only going to really take advice from people who had done it. So, like, for example, I would say, like, oh, do you have a food business? Well, no. Okay. And so, like, I might listen to what they have to say, but
Yeah.
I'm not really going to absorb it because um, I, I just had to kind of filter because, especially in the baking business and being a woman, I would get a lot of, oh, isn't that cute? Do you make cupcakes? Like, it's like, oh, like I'm just like a little home baker. And so I kind of learned that the best way for me to protect myself was to trust my gut because it was my idea. So I'm going to like baby it, and then also really leaning into people who have had the experience that's like close to what I'm doing. So don't let people sway you. If you have a crazy name or like a crazy thing, test it out or whatever. But if it's a good product and if you can really carry it through, like stay true to yourself.
Be the driver of the school bus.
Yes. Yes. Yep.
I
And yeah.
I get that what you're saying about people when they're like, "Oh, you make cake," and that's I'm like, "Okay, I don't make like, we're not taking a box of Betty Crocker here." Like, there's a science behind everything. There's the cost that it takes to go to school, and of course, you don't have to go to school
Yes.
to learn how to bake, but regardless of what route you choose, you still have to gain that experience because it's a lot of trial and error to perfect what works for you as a baker. You know, how I do something
Yes.
might not be how you do something, but we both might get the same results, you know?
Absolutely. And skill costs money, right? Nobody ever says to somebody who's like a coder, like, oh, isn't that cute? You're a coder. There's a skill, you know, there's a skill for that. And that skill has a price attached to it. And so baking, or if you're making homemade skincare,
Yep.
if you're sewing, if you're making clothes, if you're doing whatever it is that you're doing that's creative and it's not just a hobby, you are monetizing it and you are making it into a business. That's where I say trust yourself, and that skill is worth money.
Well, perfect. Thank you so much for sharing. I think that is excellent, and I will
Thank
let
you.
you, get on with the rest of your day. I'm sure you're ready to relax, take a shower, and play with Edith.
Thanks, Sean. I tried signing the consent form, and yeah, I'll try to sign it again, but yeah.
I noticed when you go to the PDF, if you click on it, you should see, like, an autofill button, and
Okay.
when I hit the autofill button, all of the blocks available, uh, they became like I was able to type in them. So
Okay, I'm gonna try that because I made it into a Google Doc. Yeah, let me see if I can do that.
okay, and if
Okay.
not, I mean, I can Beth, do I have your permission to share this video publicly?
Yes, you have my permission to share this video publicly. So
Thank you so
yeah.
much. That should do it if you
Thanks,
can't
Sean.
get that form to me.
Okay, I'll try. Okay.
Bye.
All right, this was a fun conversation. Bye.